Hi, everybody. Thomas Miller on the Fun Astrology Weekly Overview Podcast. We're talking about the week of October 21st here. I'm so glad to be back home, and thank you for joining us. We have 2 weeks and then just 2 days before the U.S. presidential election. Seems like that's what's gripped everything here lately. And I want to walk back because something happens 2 days before the election that I want to show you. So if you notice here, we are on Sunday, November 3rd, 2 days before the election. The god of war, Mars, is directly opposite the lord of the underworld, Pluto. And that opposition is in astrology considered a more tense aspect. Opposites attract sometimes, but they also pull. And we'll see how it unfolds, but I think that this week, next week, as we are getting ready for this aspect, that this is a driving force in the sky right now. So everything that we talk about happening this week is in the context of this aspect. And this is obviously what a lot of people have been looking for is how is this election going to come down? Are both sides, or will one side accept the other winning? And we don't know. We don't know what all is in store. But one thing we do know is that in his book called The Combination of Stellar Influences, Reinhold Ebertin wrote that Pluto is 3 times the strength of Mars. And we typically think of Mars as being the power planet. So however this unfolds between now and the Sunday before the election, and then obviously continuing right up to the election, we're gaining and building in this pull opposite tense energy between the 2 most powerful planets in the sky. Now, we really have a pretty light week this week, but what we do have is significant. And if you're already jumping ahead of me looking at these planets that are circled, you know that we have 2 significant ones here too. All right, so the moon, first of all, moves into its own sign of Cancer late Monday evening, the 21st. I have this set to the 22nd on Tuesday because that's really when the action is. So the moon is at home in Cancer, but also the sun, if you'll notice right here, is in a more tense aspect even than Mars, is in a square to Pluto. So here we are again. And notice one thing about the construction of the chart right now. Look at Mars, 25 degrees. Uranus, 26 degrees, Neptune, 27 degrees, Pluto, 29 degrees, and as we start the week, the sun moving through Libra is at the end of that sign as well. What that means is endings and completions. It means wrapping something up in order to move on. Well, we know that the 5 outer planets, the only 2 not represented here are Saturn and Jupiter. They're still in those more middle degrees. But the 5 outer planets between now and the middle of 2026 are going to be changing signs. And we've not seen that we have in recorded history that at least anybody can find that has happened in such a short period of time. But that energy is driving everything right now. And then when we bring something in like the sun, which is, let's say, much more relatively fast-moving than those slower planets, when it comes into an aspect with one of them, it's more present. And because it's in these later degrees, and specifically 29 degrees is known as this anaretic degree in astrology, it's more significant. It usually has bigger impacts. You can expect more volatility around something that's in 29 degrees. So we have that happening on Tuesday to kick the week off. And it's one of the only primary aspects of this entire week. So like I said, we've only got a couple, and they're doozies, but this is the first one. So what do we expect from this? Well, I said in Monday's podcast that what we really do is, instead of succumbing to fear, trepidation, this is, here it is, election. We've seen things come and go. I've been doing the Fun Astrology podcast for 5 years. We've seen challenging aspects come and challenging aspects go. And yes, some of them have definitely changed the structure even of where we are in the world. I think of the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction in December of 2020. I think of the Saturn-Pluto conjunction in January of 2020. Those were foundational, and definitely we had things take place after them that shaped our future of even where we are today. Will this aspect on Tuesday be one of those? I think we just came through eclipse season, and we came through it. So we know there are tinderboxes and hot spots around the world. We know what they are. Could any of one of those be triggered under something like this? Astrologically, absolutely. But also, we see that these things can be triggered by something like the moon or Mercury or something more unexpected to trigger something so large. So the longer we continue to do this together, and the longer I've done the audio podcast, the more I just see these aspects as things to be aware of, definitely. We want to know they're there. But do they drive us? Do they shape us? Do they cause us to act and respond in fear? No. That's where we, as conscious creators, take our own perspective and set our own course of how we're going to navigate through these things. And we also remember for our own selves that whenever we have these challenges in our way, it's a hurdle for us to overcome, for us to grow stronger, for us to take on new horizons, for us to learn new skills, for us to flex muscles. So one of the things is not to sit back on our heels. Don't sit back on our laurels. Yes, we have a tense aspect in the sky. Yes, some of the people you work with or some of your family members or some people in society might react differently. They might go to more of the shadow side. There could be some tension around this. There could be some outlashing. I mean, remember, Pluto 3 times stronger than Mars, and the sun is kind of the ultimate personal trigger. So there could be some things around this. Pluto represents transformation, death, and rebirth. Does this mean somebody could physically die? Typically not from any kind of aspect like this. This is not what you would call in astrology a death signature. They typically don't even happen from transits, at least not transits to each other. Now, if something was transit to a natal planet, yeah, maybe so. But typically this would not be something like you would consider a death trigger, but it could mean that something maybe in your life is moved out so that something else could be moved in. And around that moving out, there might be some conflict, or there could be some releasing that you have to do that maybe you don't want to do. There could be a hurdle, in other words. There could be some reason why you don't want to let it go. And the universe is saying, maybe this would be a really good time to let that go. Well, you don't want to, and there's the rub, there's the pull. So, pliability with this. See, since you know now what the aspect is, you can release easier, quicker, more readily. Like, okay, hands off, I'm going to, whatever that is, I'm going to let it go. Death and rebirth, transformation. Also, Pluto being down here at 29 degrees 40 minutes, almost back out of Capricorn, back into Aquarius. It goes in November. It will be there for the next 20 years. This little bit of real estate in Capricorn, where it's sitting right now, is asking us to get rid of things that don't serve anymore. So if on Monday or Tuesday or even through any day this week, because the aspect will be with us mostly through the week, if there is something that you know in your life, the sun, you, your essence, your target, your goal, your life force that would no longer serve you, well, drop it like a hot potato. Get rid of it. Get rid of it now. Get rid of it gladly. Surrender it to your highest purpose. Wow, I could shuck this and step into my freedom from this. And the sun on Tuesday also will be moving into Scorpio. And that's the planet of deep, passionate intensity. It's going all the way down to the bottom of the root of an issue. So we're talking about really cleaning out the closet here. And we'll be in Scorpio for the next 30 days. Scorpio is all about passion and intensity. It's about death and rebirth as well, because Scorpio is ruled by Pluto. So this is just a staging for these next 30 days of being able to freely remove things from our life that don't serve us anymore. This election is going to happen under Scorpio. That could be intense in and of itself. In fact, presidential elections by their nature are intense, right? It's setting the course of a country for the next 4 years. So this whole signature on Tuesday is setting up to say, be willing, be ready to release anything that doesn't serve. And that's going to be a process over the next 30 days. Now, here's the other big planetary aspect this week, and it is on Thursday evening. It happens about 8 o'clock Eastern Time. Mars, here we are again with Mars, is in a favorable sextile aspect with Uranus. So Uranus of surprises, Mars of power and strength and aggression. Well, this could be another big one, and it could be a hidden surprise, or it could be something that pops that we've expected for some time. Uranus also rules astrology, so astrology could come into the picture big time later this week. That's another possibility. It also is about our hidden genius, so you could get some kind of a brilliant inspiration this week under this kind of configuration right here. Think more on the positive side or the positive tilt to this aspect. But the other thing is to note, we're at 26 degrees. Uranus is in the sign of Taurus, and Mars is in the sign of Cancer, which is ruled by the moon. And remember, the moon will be in Cancer in the early part of the week. Now, it's gone by Thursday. It's in Leo already, but at least we've had that lunar influence at the beginning of the week to kind of set this stage. But this is the other big aspect, and it's big because of the planets involved and because of the impact that they could have. It could definitely be one of surprises. Now, the good news is, for the rest of the week, we basically have a blank slate. We're looking at lunar changes through the entire rest of this week. There are no other major aspects all the way through Sunday. Then we kick into some really interesting dynamics, because next week, what you're going to see is all kinds of aspects in here. In fact, we have a yod, and we have all kinds of stuff in the middle that make it look like sacred geometry, not like my chicken scratch in here, but I mean, we are getting ready to have some major aspects between the planets in the sky, and that leads up to the election as well. The last couple of days of October look like sacred geometry in the middle of that wheel. We'll show that next week. It's already in our Lucky Stars program with Kristin Lawhead, but we'll put it on display next week as well. So this week, the idea is quality over quantity, if you will. We have some doozies, but we don't have very many of them. So enjoy the break, if you will. Choose your own path through. We'll see you on the daily podcast. Not sure how many days this week we will do, because we don't have a tremendous amount to talk about, but we do have the next couple of weeks to look forward to and to obviously get through, and we'll be here through all of it, covering it all the way. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great week.